So at the end, Yaakov now, again intending to marry one woman, has now 4 wives. And in last week's parasha, we actually read of the birth of the first 11 of the tribes, all the way from Reuven straight to and including Yosef, as well as the one daughter of Yaakov, Dinah. So there were 12 children born to Jacob in last week's parasha. Now, Jacob realized he's worked for his father-in-law for 14 years. Now he has to account for himself and for, thank God, his large family. He works for 6 years. He gets prophecy from God and he says, now time to get up and leave. He leaves unannounced. Lavan is extremely hurt. How can you do that to me? And obviously Jacob didn't want to approach him. He didn't want to turn into a fight. He didn't want him to steal from him. So he picked up and went. Lavan goes, catches up. They have their little to-do. They powwow, hash it out. And then Lavan blesses his daughters and his grandchildren before they part their ways. Now, Jacob is at the age of 97. This is when he left. Remember, he was 77 when he got to Lavan's house. 20 years later, he's now 97 years old. And just to keep stuff into, just to get stuff into a nice, clearer picture, Joseph at this time is now 6 years old, just so we know. So Yaakov Avinu is now 97 years old, and he again gets prophecy and he gets wind of his brother approaching him to greet him back home. And this caused a lot of insecurity, maybe a little bit of fear even in Jacob. And he's saying, wow, this is going to be the first time in 34 years that I see the brother, my own brother, who disliked me, didn't like me too much when I left. I'm sure it only grew and got even worse since then. And he got scared. So he prays to God, but he also did his own hishtadlut. He did his own efforts. And what he did was he sent, as the Torah tells us, malachim. And I'll read you the first verse of this week's parasha. Vayishlach Yaacov malachim el Esav achiv arza seir sede Edom. He sent messengers to his brother Esav. Now, malachim, the Midrash tells us, there's 2 ways to understand what is a malach. A malach can be interpreted as a messenger, as a human being. So he sent some messengers, literally. It could also be interpreted as angels, celestial beings. And the Midrash in itself has 2 opinions. Some say they were really messengers, and others say no, they were really angels. On that, the Zera Shimshon, he asks a question, and he says, is Jacob just able to call upon angels to run errands anytime he wants? If so, where does he have this power, or how is he able to just have an angel run an errand for him just like that? On that, the Midrash tells us 2 different answers. One answer is from Rav Chama bar Chanina. Okay, we'll call him Rav Chama. Rav Chama says, and he makes a kal vachomer. Let me just introduce to us and explain to us what a kal vachomer is. A kal vachomer is, if such and such is true, then all the more so, for this it would be true. I'll give a petty example. If I can pick up a table, well, all the more so can I pick up a chair, because a chair weighs less than a table, right? If I'm able to outrun a sprinter, well, I'm able to outrun my child running after me, for example. So it's called a kal, easy, obvious, vachomer, then all the more so. And therefore, Rav Chama learns a kal vachomer from Hagar. Hagar, which was the maidservant of Sarah Imenu. When she left the first, we know she left twice. Once she left and once she was sent. But when she left the first time, when she ran away from Sarah, when she found that she was pregnant and Sarah was still making her work, she ran away. There were some angels that appeared to her and told her, don't worry, your child, your offspring will also be blessed. So don't worry, go back to your position, and it is a merit for you to actually serve Sarah Imenu. And the Midrash says, well, if for Hagar she had angels come and help her, well, all the more so for Yaakov Avinu that angels can come and help her. Then he also brings another Kal Vachomer. He says, Eliezer, the slave of Avraham Avinu, when he came to the home of Lavan and Betuel, he also had angels come and help convince Lavan and Betuel to allow their daughter and sister Rivka to go with him. So again, if Eliezer could have angels do for him, well, all the more so could Yaakov Avinu have angels do for him as well. That's Rav Chama. He makes two Kal Vachomers. He uses this principle twice to prove that if the two servants could have, well, all the more so Yaakov. Rav Yosef, another one of the sages, he learns a Kal Vachomer from Yosef HaTzadik. What does he say? That Yosef, when he went to look out for his brothers, what happened? There was, many of us think one angel, it was actually three angels. We'll explain why in a moment. There were actually three angels that came to him and warned him, don't go. We know that he didn't listen. But nevertheless, he did have he had forewarning or an assistance from angels. And therefore, Rav Yosef says, if Yosef, the youngest of all of the tribes, the very son of Yaakov Avinu, he had angels help him, well, all the more so, Yaakov can also be helped. This is what the Midrash says. To that, the Zera Shimshon asks a question. He says, why does the Midrash need to tell me and answer this question of how do we know that Yaakov could use angels or have angels at his disposal, learning it from an inference and a Kal Vachomer from that concept of if for lesser ones they could use them, well, all the more so Yaakov. Why do you have to go out of your way and start choosing characters like Hagar and Eliezer as well as Yosef? There's a clear verse. If anyone would open the end of last week's parasha, the end of Parashat Vayishlach, it says as follows: Vayifgeu bo malache Elohim, vayomer Yaakov kasher machane Elohim zeh, and then the pasuk finishes off. That is right after he meets Lavan. Right after he meets Lavan, he continues on his way, and it says, the Torah tells us that angels came to accompany him on his way. It's very simple. If we already know that angels come and accompany him on his way, why does the Midrash need to go out of his way to try to teach us from lesser biblical characters that the greater biblical character can all of a sudden and obviously use angels? That's the Zera Shimshon's question. Why are you going and inferring it from different concepts when we have a clear verse that tell us that after Yaakov dealt with his father-in-law for the last time, angels came and accompanied him? Now over there, everyone agrees it's angels. It doesn't mean that messengers, those malachim were messengers. There, everybody agrees that it was angels that came to accompany him. So according to the opinions that he had angels, real angels, why do you need to learn it from these inferences from other biblical characters? Yaakov Avinu himself had his own merit and his own accounts already of using angels. That is the question of Zera Shimshon. To that he answers, very nice, he actually uses a different midrash. There's a midrash that says that there were 600,000 angels waiting to greet Yaakov Avinu on his way into Eretz Yisrael. 600,000 angels. Could anyone think of where is the number 600,000 already found? Well, not yet in our Torah, but it's coming up. It's coming up by the Exodus of Egypt, as well as the giving of the Torah. It's the Torah tells us that Shishim Ribo, 600,000 left. We know there was more than 600,000. 600,000 was actually men between the age of, if I'm not mistaken, 20 and 60. Okay, so there was men between the ages of 20 and 60, 600,000. Then there were the children. Then there were older than that. Then there were women. For example, many calculations prove that there were actually 3 million Jews that left Egypt. However, this number 600,000 seems to be quite astonishing. And to that, the Midrash tells us there were 600,000 angels waiting to greet Jacob on his way back after 34 years back home to Israel. So the Zera Shimshon says something very nice. He says, you know what? Jacob, in his prophecy and his greatness, he knew that there were angels there. They could have been at his disposal, but he felt, how could he take even one or two or a couple of angels away from that wholesome number of 600,000? 600,000 means that they were in the immediate and direct presence of God, of the Shekhinah. And now he felt, how could I go and remove an angel and diminish that level of closeness and that unity that there is between God and those angels? And therefore, the whole reason, he answers, the whole reason why we had to use a kal vachomer to find them other angels was because they were new and different angels than the other 600,000 that were waiting for him. We got that? That the Midrash had to learn a whole new way to prove to me that he could use angels, because there was brand new angels besides for those 600,000 that were waiting for him over there. This is what the Zera Shimshon says. On that, he asks two interesting questions. He says, first of all, as we know, especially to those of us who have learned Talmud, especially recently, whenever there's two opinions being brought, we need to look at it and say, is there a disagreement, or are they agreeing and one's adding on the other? Very often when we say, for example, Bet Hillel says so-and-so, and Bet Shammai says such and such, well, normally they're disagreeing. So the Midrash that tells us that Rav Chama says, he brings a proof from Hagar and Eliezer, and Rav Yosef brings a proof from Yosef HaTzadik. What's their argument? Are they agreeing? Are they arguing? It's quite obvious that they're arguing. He wants to know the Zera Shimshon asks, what's their argument? Why is Rav Chama learning it from Hagar and Eliezer? And why is Rabbi Yosef learning it from Yosef HaTzadik? What's the difference? And then he says, okay, after we figure that out, why did Rabbi Chama need to bring two proofs from two individuals? Choose either Hagar, either Eliezer, either Yosef. Why did he have to bring two? And then the second one, Rabbi Yosef only brought a proof from one person. So, listen to the answer he gives. Why did the angels go to Hagar? First of all, he explains that there were 5 angels that went to Hagar that first time when she ran away to convince her to go back to Sarai Menu. He says, why 5? 5 is an interesting number. You only need one angel to tell him. 5 was because 5 is the numerical value of... Hey. 5 is the numerical value of Hey. And what was Sarai's name switched to? To Sarah. So the angels were coming and telling her, go back to your mistress, to Sarai Menu, because she's a different person now. She used to be Sarai, now she is Sarah. And Sarah is the first of our matriarchs. The angels are telling her, it's a new person. Go back to her because it's a very big merit for you to serve her. But what's the whole point? Their whole point was to come and appease her after being insulted. So that's number 1. Why did angels come to the aid of Eliezer? They came to the aid of Eliezer to convince Lavan and Betuel to allow their daughter and sister, to Rivka, to go with Eliezer to marry Yitzhak. Okay? Now, why did he bring those to Rabbi Chama? Because what did Yaacov now need to do to his brother? He needed to appease him, and he needed to convince him. What did he need to appease him for? He needed to appease him for taking the birthright, taking the blessings, And what did he need to convince him? He needed to convince him that it was rightfully his. At the end of the day, he was not befitting for those blessings. It was not his descendants which deserved them. Rather, it was the descendants, his own descendants. So therefore, Rabbi Chama brought two proofs from two different individuals than Yosef, because each of those angels came there to do something special, the same things that Yaakov Avinu was trying to do to his very own brother. The first, appease for being insulted, and the second, to convince. Now, why did Rabbi Yosef argue on that? Rabbi Yosef said, you can't bring me a parallel between Yaakov and those two slaves, because those two were doing the will of God. The will of God was for Hagar to go back to Sarah. And the will of God was for Eliezer to choose a wife for Yitzhak. But for Yosef, you can't say that for Yaakov. Because Yaakov was not commanded to send angels or messengers to his brother. He was doing that because he wanted himself to do it. He wanted to appease, he wanted to make peace, but it was not a commandment for Hagar and for Eliezer. It was a commandment. They were doing the absolute will of God. So therefore Rabbi Yosef says, no, let's compare him to Yosef. Yosef was not commanded by God to go out and watch his brothers. He did it because, his father alluded to it, but he did it more from himself. And therefore, prove it to me from Yosef, who did it from himself, and therefore Yaakov did it from himself also, and they're all the more so he was able to use malachim. Yosef, by the way, had 3 angels sent to him. And why 3? Because we know, as we'll read in next week's Torah portion, he said 3 things which were not nice about his brothers to his father. He said, firstly, that they were eating ever minachai, which meaning that they were eating body parts of animals while they were still alive, which was not true, and that's why he was punished for that later on when they kidnapped him and they slaughtered an animal and they poured the blood all over his clothes. That was payback for him saying Lashon Hara about them on that account. The second is that he said that the brothers of the sons of Leah were degrading and disrespecting the children of the Shvachot, of Zilpah and Bilhah. In account for that, he was sold as a slave. And then he said, that they are suspected for promiscuity and for adultery, which again was not true. And therefore, he had that test with the wife of Potiphar. So 3 angels came to him, the Zera Shimshon explains, in order to reprimand him and rebuke him for the 3 nasty things he said about his brothers. And however, that is a better comparison to Yaakov, Rabbi Yosef says, because Yosef went out of his own will, and Yaakov did this out of his own will. Last question on this part, the Zera Shimshon asks, he says, why did Yaakov need to send angels? We already read that he prayed to God for help. That should be good enough. Okay, and if he sent angels, well, why didn't the angels answer him before they actually went out? They're celestial beings. They know the answer. They know if Esav is preparing for war or if he's preparing to reunite in a peaceful way. Why did he need to send them and wait for a response? And where's the response? So look what the Zera Shimshon says, and we'll end this segment on this part. He says that really the angels told Yaakov that Esav was willing to make peace with him and reunite. However, he still wanted to send them because he wanted Esav to do teshuvah. He sent these angels, or these messengers, however you want to learn it, in order to facilitate the repentance and atonement for all these years of bearing hatred and animosity that Esav had towards Yaakov. So he sent these angels, or these messengers, nevertheless, in order to promote this concept of teshuvah for his brother. So on that, I like to bring out a very powerful lesson. And that is, we see that no matter how far a person either is or sees others at, there's always a opening and a route back for teshuvah, for repentance. We see that Yaakov, he gave up. He did not give up. We see Yaakov Avinu not giving up on his brother at any cost. He'll send angels, he'll send messengers, even though he knows he hates him, that's fine. But he did not give up on his brother, no matter what. There's a true story that actually happened here in Miami. This was a good bunch of years ago. If anyone knows Rabbi Ephraim Shapiro, he is a prominent rabbi in NMB, North Miami Beach. And one day he was in a pizza shop, obviously a kosher pizza shop, in North Miami Beach. And he was sitting with his wife. They were minding their own business. They were eating. And a table over, there were 4 guests, 4 ladies, close friends, that when the waiter brought out food to them, they gave him attitude. They started screaming at him, "This is not what we ordered. It's not hot." They were driving him crazy, and the poor waiter, it wasn't his fault. He's not the chef. He didn't prepare it. However, he was completely silent, the waiter. He excused himself. He didn't know where to put himself. He was screamed at like crazy. He put ticket, and he just went back. When he returned, Rabbi Shapiro flagged him down, called him over, and he grabbed his hand, and he put it on his head, and he said, "Give me a blessing." So the waiter, Jewish but not observant at all, looks at the rabbi with the long beard, and he says, "Rabbi, I don't understand something. You're the rabbi, I'm the waiter, you should be blessing me, I should not be blessing you." And Rabbi Shapiro answered that right now, your power of blessing is the strongest in the world. And he explained to him and said that our sages teach us that when one is embarrassed, when one has been degraded, especially in front of others, at that moment, if they decide to close their mouth and accept it, even though they might not even deserve it, and they probably don't deserve it, at that very moment, anything they pray for is 100% guaranteed to be answered. It's called working on yourself. It's called overcoming our natural instincts, which is, as we all know, if we've all been in that situation, one of, if not the hardest things to do. So he explained that to the non-practicing Jewish waiter, and he blessed the rabbi. And he went back to the kitchen to do his thing. 5 minutes later, the waiter's name was Shoham. Is Shoham, he's still alive. He came over to the rabbi and he said, "Rabbi, I need to tell you, I grew up in Israel. I'm 23 years old. My family in Israel are ultra religious. And already when I was a teenager, I started going off and rebelling. I never felt the warmth that you gave me today, and I'm completely inspired." That's what he tells him. So the rabbi says, could be the time, the place that you used to be in, that maybe it was not appealing, but give it another shot. Give Judaism, give Torah another shot. Maybe it can speak to you and it can inspire you. And on the moment, he took his number down, he gave it to another rabbi who could follow up with him, and they got together and they followed up and they built a relationship and they continued on, and he eventually found his way back to Judaism, married, children, happily ever after almost. And what's the lesson of the story? The lesson is we don't understand how much we can do by doing something so small. We don't understand how we could bring someone back by doing something so small, something like giving someone a hug, by complimenting somebody, by teaching them some of the beautiful gems of our sages, which just inspire them and just want to get them connected. For women, maybe it's explaining a woman how important it is and the blessing there is in lighting Shabbat candles, or keeping family purity, or making challah. It could be that easy. And for men, maybe explaining to them about tzitzit and maybe tefillin and coming in and partaking in the Talmud class. To each person, something else. That great line of the sages of blessing someone when you hold back. To some people, that touches them, that inspires them. But the point is we don't know what we can do even just with a little bit of effort. And you don't need to be the greatest tzaddik or tzaddiket. And you don't need to be a rabbi. And you don't need to be a teacher. You just need to be yourself and realize that in our social circles, our family circles, little things that we can do can actually make a big difference. It's kind of like when you shoot a long shot, if you want to call it in golf, as a bow and arrow, as pulling the trigger to a rifle. If you move it just a little bit down the line, it's really far off. So right now, you're doing something little. You're complimenting someone. You're inviting someone. You're bringing them. You say, hey, come check out our synagogue. Hey, why don't you read this book? You know what just referring a book to someone can do to them? To many, they never even look at it. To others, it's a completely life changer. But that's just something small that right now it's a millimeter off. But 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, it makes a huge impact. And this we learn from Yaacov. Yaacov did not give up on his brother. He knew his brother 34 years ago, how he was completely off the map, completely rebellious. And he imagined it could only be worse now. Doesn't matter. We're not going to give up. We're going to go, we're going to send messengers, and we're going to try to take that hope and that salvation that there is and hope for the best. That's the first part of the Zera Shimshon for this week. We're going to move on to the next part. So Yaakov now sends those messengers. We know that he gets a response, but he continues traveling towards his brother with his wives, his children, his livestock. And while he's traveling and he crosses over from one area to another, he crosses a river, he realizes he forgot some personal belongings on the other side of the river. So he goes back to get them alone. While he goes back alone, the Torah tells us that he has the famous battle between him and the angel of Esav. Him and the angel of Esav, they go at it. They, for most part, are going at it spiritually, obviously in spiritual, but how do you fight with an angel? Has anyone ever fought with an angel? The truth is very good, very good. But seriously speaking, Yaakov Avinu was the only man to ever fight an angel. And he won. We'll soon address that in a moment. But Yaakov Avinu fights this angel and wins. Now, obviously, fighting an angel is spiritual. Yet we knew there was a physical ramification. He got hit in his thigh, to be more direct, his sciatic nerve, and he was limping ever since. So there was definitely a physical aspect to this fight as well. And Yaakov wins. To that, the Malach, the angel of Esav, says as follows. He tells him, from now on, your name is not going to be Yaakov, rather it's going to be Israel, and he gives him a reason. He says, Ki sarita im Elohim ve'im anashim vatuchal. He says, because you beat Elohim, referring to an angel himself, and you've also beat people, human beings, which refer to Esav. So you beat the angel of Esav, a godly figure, and you've also beat a human being, Esav. And he says, because of those reasons, now your name should be Israel, like Sarita, which is the Hebrew word for you've beat. Your name now is Israel, not Yaakov. So to that, the Zera Shimshon wonders, 1 second, is it one reason or two reasons? Is it because you beat the angel? Is it because you beat Esav? Is it because of both? Are they connected? Like, which one is it? So listen to a beautiful concept, and Hashem helped me, I pulled out a nice lesson from it. We'll see if you enjoy it. He brings down the Zera Shimshon and says, and this is something that bothered us all from last week and even the week before. It seems that Jacob, who is the Ish Emet, the truthful of all of our forefathers one, did something really not so truthful. He took advantage of his brother in his time of need at the age of 15 and he took his birthright. He did it again at age 63 when he and his mother plotted this plan to take the blessings. How could the Ish Emet, the greatest of our forefathers, the one whose nickname is Truth, do something which seems so false, so untruthful? So the Zera Shimshon says as follows. The fact that he beat the angel proves to us that he never did anything wrong. And how? The Talmud in Masechet Sanhedrin tells us that a human being cannot beat an angel. No chance. An angel is pure, complete. You cannot beat something complete. As long as a person has at least one sin, one transgression that they've ever done, they're not able to beat an angel. The very fact that Zera Shimshon says that he beat the angel proves that he never did anything wrong by taking those blessings. It proves to him and to the whole world forevermore that what he did was rightfully his and not in a cunning or tricking or unfaithful way. Because how else could he have beaten an angel? A human being with at least one sin cannot beat an angel. So therefore, when the Torah tells us, Ki sarita im Elohim v'im anashim batuchal, it's two reasons. Firstly, now you just beat the angel. You've also beaten your brother Esav. But they're interconnected and it's really two but one reason, because the second one proves on the first account that you really never did anything wrong to your brother. To that I like to say, and this is always a famous political view on how to view things in any relationship. This is with friends, this is with families, this is in any way, especially with family members, even spouses, that don't aim to win the battle, rather aim to win the war. There's a difference between each and every battle, and then there's the grand picture of things, and that's what we'll like to call the war. In life, sometimes it seems like a person, maybe even ourselves, we're losing on the small battles. This one, that one, this one, that one. But a smart person is able to know, do I put up a fight for this battle or not? Do I try or do I compromise? Do I give in? If a husband and a wife are never giving in and they're each focusing on always winning each battle, and one wants black and one wants white, and one wants right and one wants left, and one wants up and this one wants down, and everything is opposite, and it's fighting for each and every battle, well, in that case, no one's going to win the war. But when a person understands that there are certain things that they need to put a fight up for or need to put their effort into, and certain things not, well, at the end of the time, we'll see who really won. We'll see who really won the war. And this reminds me of Yaacov Avinu. 2 parashas ago, we read that he took the birthright. He took the blessing. We're in suspense. Who won that battle, who not? Oh, it seems like Esav won that battle. He got Yaakov now acting unfaithful and untruthful. No. Wait till the end of the story. Wait till the war comes to a close. Who now has done things correctly? Well, by the moment of truth, when Yaakov now fights with the angel representing Esav and he wins, now that can prove to us on the past everything else that was done. Was it done for the good or done for the opposite? And that's something very important in life for us to notice. Take those messages. God will always let win to those who deserve to win. He's not going to let people who always take advantage of others and berate others and disgrace others, insult others. Those people, if you want to call them bullies, remember we grew up with them in whether it's elementary or high school. There's always those with the big shots, the ones with the big mouths and all that. Where do they finish? So they were winning the battle for those years in high school, maybe even college. But where do many of them end up? God always lets the ones who deserve to win the war, win that war. And we have to sometimes remind ourselves to look at the greater picture of things rather than the subtleties of each and every detail, which sometimes unfortunately bogs us down and gets us out of that grand picture of what's my goal, what am I focused on, where do I want to achieve. So to sum up, we learned, I think, two amazing lessons. The first lesson of never give up on teshuvah for anybody, obviously for ourselves and even for others, whether it's our children, whether it's our parents, whether it's our friends, our siblings, our own spouses even, it doesn't matter. We learn from the fact that Yaacov sent those angels to his brother, that even there was hope with Esav. And then the second concept of understanding to look at the bigger picture of things, understanding that the end of the story always proves to us what happened during the whole story, along the whole time, knowing on who was really right and who wasn't, and who's able to, I guess, win that war. May God bless us in the merit of our very holy author, Rabbi Shimshon Chaim Nachmani, that his soul will be even more blessed and elevated up to Shamayim, along with all of those, whether of our family members or friends who have perished, and give a refuah shlema to all the those in need of a speedy recovery in Klal Yisrael, whether they're ones that we know of, that are close, family and friends, and even to all the world, worldwide, anyone who's in need of a Yeshua, of any salvation, as we know that the author promises, whether it's parnasa, livelihood, health, happiness, children, to some, whether it's a job, to some it's a shidduch, to find their soulmate. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless all of Klal Yisrael on behalf of the learning that we've done this evening in the merit of Rabbi Shimshon Chaim Nachmani, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.